Earth formed about 4.5 billion years ago. It began as a hot, molten ball of rock pulled together by gravity around the young sun. There were no oceans or air to breathe, only volcanoes and constant impacts from space rocks. Over hundreds of millions of years, the surface cooled. Water appeared, first as vapor, then as oceans covering much of the planet. Simple life emerged very early, perhaps 3 to 4 billion years ago. Tiny single-celled organisms lived in those ancient seas. Evidence of them appears in the oldest rocks found in Africa and Australia. These organisms slowly produced oxygen, which eventually filled the atmosphere and changed the color of the sky. For a very long time, different forms of life dominated the planet. Reptiles, including the dinosaurs, became dominant for millions of years. Then a massive asteroid struck what is now the region of Mexico around 66 million years ago, causing widespread fires, darkness, and the extinction of most large reptiles. This opened the way for mammals to spread and diversify across the continents. Some scientific theories suggest early human-like remains appear in Africa millions of years ago. Evidence points to upright movement. In Ethiopia and nearby places, partial fossils like cracked skull pieces and footprint marks hint at changes in posture over time. But many remains are broken or missing. Over long stretches, larger brain areas and sharper stone tools show up in African layers. Around 300,000 years ago, modern human-like skulls and teeth appear in African sites like Morocco and Ethiopia. Early modern human remains stay mostly in Africa for tens of thousands of years. Other continents show older traces or nothing at all. Some groups may have left Africa early tools and bone bits scattered along paths, but the story's still unclear. In Australia, traces like hand stencils and burials appear around 65,000 years ago. Europe shows cave art hand marks and animal drawings from 45,000 years ago. North America has tool scatters and footprints from 20,000 years ago. Ice Age mud preserved them. Antarctica has no traces, no bones, no tools, just endless ice. According to the teachings of the 3 major Abrahamic religions, the first humans were Adam and Eve. God created them and placed them in a perfect garden known as Paradise or Eden. After they disobeyed by eating from the forbidden tree, they were sent to live on earth and became the ancestors of all humanity. Many people hold this account as a spiritual truth, and some see ways it can align with the scientific understanding of human origins and early migrations. After a long period of cold climate, the large ice sheets melted. This led to one of the greatest changes in human history, the beginning of farming around 12,000 years ago. People learned to grow plants and raise animals in several places independently. In the region of the Middle East, wheat and barley were cultivated. In East Asia, rice became a staple. In parts of Central America, maize was developed. In the Andes of South America, potatoes and other crops appeared. Africa continued traditions of herding and planting. Cities and organized societies arose in several regions. In Mesopotamia, part of Asia, the earliest writing systems were created, along with large urban centers around 3500 BC. In South Asia, the Indus Valley Civilization around 2600 BC created planned cities with advanced drainage systems. In Africa, the civilization of ancient Egypt developed along the Nile, constructing enormous pyramids around 2600 BC. In Europe, large stone monuments such as Stonehenge were built around 3000 BC. In South America, early complex societies constructed impressive structures in the Andes around 2600 BC. North America saw the rise of mound-building cultures in later periods. Australia's indigenous peoples maintained rich oral traditions, art, and deep connections to the land. In the classical period, great empires and ideas spread. In Europe and nearby parts of Asia, the Greeks developed philosophy, mathematics, and early forms of democracy. Alexander the Great created a vast empire in the 4th century BC that connected Europe, Asia, and Africa. Rome built one of the largest empires the world had seen, spreading roads, law, and engineering. At the same time in Asia, powerful empires rose in India, and in China, large states unified the land and invented important technologies. In Africa, kingdoms such as Kush and later Aksum became major trading powers. In the Americas, the Maya built sophisticated cities with advanced calendars and writing. Around the 5th century BC in India, Buddhism emerged from the teachings of Siddhartha Gautama, focusing on ending suffering. Hinduism, with its ancient roots in South Asia, continued to shape culture and philosophy. Later centuries saw the rise of Islam in the Arabian Peninsula in the 7th century AD, founded by the Prophet Muhammad. This new faith spread rapidly across Asia, Africa, and into parts of Europe, bringing a golden age of science, mathematics, medicine, and architecture. In Europe, after the fall of the Western Roman Empire in 476 AD, societies rebuilt with feudal systems, cathedrals, and universities. Christianity, which began in the 1st century AD with the teachings of Jesus of Nazareth, spread widely across Europe, parts of Asia, and Africa during this time and beyond. In Asia, China reached great heights with inventions like paper, printing, and gunpowder during dynasties such as Tang and Song. The Mongol Empire, led by Genghis Khan in the 13th century, became the largest land empire in history, linking distant regions through trade and conquest. Central Asia, long a crossroads of the Silk Road with its own flourishing civilizations, saw further development under these connections. In Africa, wealthy empires such as Mali with Mansa Musa in the 14th century, and Songhai controlled gold and salt trade across the Sahara. In the Americas, the Aztec Empire rose in the 15th century with the great city of Tenochtitlan, and the Inca Empire built large road systems and cities in the Andes. In Central Asia, the Timurid dynasty, founded by Timur in the late 14th century, created a powerful empire and sparked the Timurid Renaissance in the 15th century. One of Timur's descendants, Babur, founded the Mughal Empire, sometimes called the Baburid Empire, in South Asia in the 16th century. Around the 15th century in India, Sikhism was founded by Guru Nanak, emphasizing equality, service, and devotion to one God. A major shift occurred when European explorers began sailing across the oceans in the 15th and 16th centuries. Christopher Columbus arrived in the Americas in 1492, leading to an enormous exchange of plants, animals, and ideas between the Eastern and Western hemispheres. Unfortunately, diseases brought from Europe caused terrible loss of life among indigenous populations in North and South America. Large empires were established by European powers, including the Spanish Empire and Portuguese Empire. The transatlantic slave trade brought immense suffering, forcibly moving millions from Africa to the Americas. Australia was gradually settled by Europeans, starting in the late 18th century. Antarctica, a continent that had once been ice-free with lush vegetation in ancient geological times, but became covered in thick ice sheets, starting around 34 million years ago, was first sighted by human explorers in 1820. The invention of machines powered by steam, and later other sources, transformed life in the 18th and 19th centuries. The Industrial Revolution began in Europe around 1760 and spread to North America and beyond. Factories produced goods on a large scale. Railways and steamships connected distant places. Many countries fought for independence and modern forms of government, including the American Revolution in the 1770s and Latin American independence movements in the early 19th century. Slavery was abolished in most parts of the world during the 19th century. European powers expanded control over much of Africa and Asia through colonialism. In Central Asia, The Russian Empire expanded and conquered the region during the 19th century. The 20th century brought two enormous global conflicts. The First World War began in 1914 and involved nearly every continent through battles, colonies, and supply lines. The Second World War from 1939 to 1945 was even more widespread, with fighting across Europe, Asia, Africa, and the Pacific. Adolf Hitler's regime carried out the Holocaust, murdering millions of innocent people. In the Soviet Union, Joseph Stalin's policies caused the deaths of millions of innocent civilians. After the war, two superpowers, the United States and the Soviet Union, led a long period of tension known as the Cold War from the late 1940s onward. Many nations in Asia and Africa gained independence during this time, such as India in 1947. In 1969, humans achieved a monumental milestone by landing on the moon during the Apollo 11 mission. The invention of computers and the internet began to connect the entire world in the late 20th century. The fall of the Berlin Wall in 1989 and the end of the Soviet Union in 1991 marked the close of the Cold War era. New technologies like mobile phones and digital networks spread everywhere. Global challenges such as climate change, pandemics like COVID-19 starting in 2020, and conflicts have affected all continents. Advances in science, medicine, and artificial intelligence continue to shape the future. Humanity built everything, but the future depends on what comes next.